Good morning. We will begin with the topic on cell structure and function. And you know that cell is the structural unit of an organism. And the organisms may be of unicellular forms or multicellular forms. In a unicellular forms, the single cell can perform each and every function which is necessary for that single celled organism. But in multicellular organism, we can able to observe there are organisms with many cells, and individual cells have their own function, and those functions together responsible for controlling all the metabolic activities or the functions necessary for that particular organism. So what the cell and what its structure and what it actually composed of, and what are the functions of all the cell organelles present in them, that we have to discuss in this topic. The cell was for the first time observed by Robert Hooke in 1665, where he was studying cork cells, the dead cells, took the section and observed, and he could able to observe the number of compartments like a honeycomb, and each compartments he considered to be as a cells. Later, Lamarck in 1809, Turpin in 1826, Brown in 1831, they have noticed that there is a nucleus even in the plant cells. And later, the number of workers have been worked on the cell, particularly the Sleeden of a German botanist and Schwann of German zoologist, and they together they proposed a cell theory. And that cell theory holds that all living matter, from the simplest unicellular organism to the very complex higher plants and animals, is composed of cells, and that each cell can act independently, but they together functions as an integral part of complete organism. So that is what the important feature of this cell theory, where organisms are made up of number of cells. The cells independently can undergo with a particular function, but those functions are integral part of complete organism. That was the cell theory which was proposed. And later Kolliker suggested that sperms and ova are histological elements originating in the organisms. And like this, the number of suggestions have been given, proposals have been given by the number of cytologists. But ultimately, they were able to recognize that organisms may be having two types of cells, that is prokaryotic cell and eukaryotic cell. What is prokaryotic cell? Prokaryotic cell is the most primitive cell that we can observe, and that's why it is the name derived from the Greek language. The pro means earlier, before. That's a prokaryotic organism. And this prokaryotic organism are first formed, and they have been considered to be originated about 2.5 billion years ago. That is the oldest, the cells of prokaryotes which has been evolved. And then we can able to observe about 1.5 billion years back, these eukaryotic cells have been considered to be as originated. And particularly the prokaryotic organisms means cyanobacteria, that you know the structure of a cyanobacterial cell and all, and that you know. And thereby, structurally we can see these prokaryotic organisms are the most primitive organisms. And where in the diagram you can see this is a prokaryotic cell and this is a eukaryotic cell. What is prokaryotic cell? The prokaryotic cell is mainly characterized by the presence of incipient nucleus, which is called as nucleoid. because this hereditary material which is present, it is not yet bounded by any membrane. But come to this is the nucleus which is having a distinct membrane bounded, and within that we can see here the hereditary material in the form of a chromosomes. But here in the prokaryotes, there is no distinct nucleus. That's why it's called as incipient nucleus, or it is called as a nucleus. But in eukaryotes, we can see the membrane bounded cell organelle, that is nucleus, which is membrane bounded, or it is with the presence of nuclear membrane. So that is the main distinguishing features between the prokaryotic organism and eukaryotic organism. The other differences we will discuss in the later stages. Now, if you look at this ultrastructure of a prokaryotic cell, what this prokaryotic cell will consist of? It's a, as I told you, it is a most primitive cell. And the ultrastructure can be very well studied in bacterial cells, and which is basically composed of cell envelope, the cytoplasm which has been enclosed by this envelope. There is a nucleoid, that is the incipient nucleus. There are specialized structures like plasmids and also the surface appendages. So in this way, we can study the entire structure of the prokaryotic cell. Now coming to this structure of a prokaryotic cell, like a typical bacterial cell, diagrammatic representation that we can see. And as I told you, this prokaryotic cells are externally bounded by the cell envelope. The cell envelope, the term itself is indicating, that is structure which is completely bordering, covering the cell, that cell envelope. It is a protective covering. And basically, they have three layers. The outermost is glycocalyx, middle one is cell wall, and the innermost is cell membrane, or which can be called as a plasma membrane. So where you can able to observe, this is complete cell envelope. And the outermost region we can able to observe, this is made up of glycocalyx. Then we can able to observe centrally the middle layers, the cell wall. It's called a cell wall. Means cell wall is externally bounded by a specific chemical substance, and that is glycocalyx. Inner to this cell wall, we can able to observe this cell membrane. This is the cell membrane. And thereby, we can able to observe the cell membrane is the innermost, the cell wall is the middle layer, and the outer layer is made up of glycocalyx. So now coming to this glycocalyx, what is this? It is the outermost layer of the cell envelope. So this is the outermost layer of the cell envelope, which chemically composed of polysaccharides. Sometimes it may be with or without proteins, and which is also recognized as capsule. That layer is also recognized as a capsule. And when glycocalyx is thick and tough, then it is called as a capsule. But sometimes it forms a loose sheath, and in that case it is called a slime layer. The outermost layer of envelope may be called as a capsule when it is thick and tough, and when it is smooth, then it is considered to be as a slime layer. The term itself is indicating it is like a slimy. And this layer, the glycocalyx layer, has an important function, that is, it protects the cell from desiccation. Desiccation means drying out. The cell is not allowed to dry out. It protects from certain toxic substances, and also it protects from the phenomenon of phagocytosis. And the another most important feature of this capsule is it also helps in addition to the host when they are virulent forms. So when bacteria is of a virulent and non-virulent, you know that. And virulent forms has to attach to the host cell. And in that case, this capsule layer or the outermost layer helps in getting attached to the host. Then coming to the second layer, that is cell wall. We can see the cell wall layer of a cell envelope. It is a rigid mid layer, and it actually gives the shape because of the rigidity, and also it protects the bacterial cell from bursting during the osmotic phenomenon. Means when the bacterial cell in a hypotonic solution, there is an endosmosis. The volume of this protoplasm expands, and then there may be a chance of bursting, and that bursting is not allowed by this distinct cell wall. And particularly in the gram-positive bacteria, this cell wall is single layered. Okay, single layer, and the cell wall is made up of a chemical called as peptidoglycan. Chemical called as a peptidoglycan, and also it is also called as murine. It is also called as a murine. And now these walls in a gram-positive bacteria contains teichoic acid. Gram-negative bacteria cell wall will contain teichoic acid, but proteins are almost absent. And gram-negative bacteria cell wall is two layer compared to gram-positive bacteria. Gram-positive bacteria is having a single layer cell wall, but gram-negative bacteria will have two layer cell wall. The outer membrane is bilipid layer. If you can go through the diagram, so we can able to observe this is the cell wall, which is made up of peptidoglycan. That is, cell envelope is enlarged. Okay, this is cell wall, which is a peptidoglycan, and then we can see this cell membrane inside. And this is still further enlarged diagram. You can see this cell wall. Okay, this is the cell wall completely. And this cell wall on the outer side is having a lipopolysaccharides. Okay, lipopolysaccharides, which is abbreviated as LPS, lipopolysaccharides, along with certain protein. And this is the outer layer. And inner to that, we can able to observe the actual peptidoglycan. So thereby, these lipopolysaccharides present only in the outer surface of the outer membrane. They are not present on the inner side. You can see this peptidoglycan and so on the inner side we can't see that, only on the outer side. Okay. And these sometimes also having the porins. The cell wall is having the porins to channelize the required molecules through this layer. So that is what the specific structure that we can able to observe in this. And then we can able to observe there is a cell membrane, the inner layer, the cell membrane. It is the innermost layer of the cell envelope. It is semi-permeable, you know that. It's a dynamic membrane similar to the eukaryotic membrane. But only the difference is that in bacteria, they lack the sterols. Okay, they lack the steroids. Otherwise, structurally they are similar. And this plasma membrane will perform certain specific functions. It retains the cytoplasm. It prevents the loss of essential components through leakage because it is a border for that. And it holds the cytoplasm inside and also prevents the leakage of any chemicals or the substances from internal region, and aids in the movement of nutrients, waste, secretions across the membrane, and also holds the receptor molecules. That is the most important. Receptor molecules that detect and respond to the chemicals in their surroundings. So that is the receptor molecules are the specialized structures present on this cell membrane. And actually this cell membrane, we can see the beaded like appearances on this diagram, you can see. And these are the infoldings of this membrane. particularly in the bacterial cell, we can see. These cell membranes makes the numerous infoldings and appears to be like a small vesicles, and they are considered as mesosomes. Mesosomes. And these mesosomes are the structures, functions like a mitochondria, because mitochondria are absent in the prokaryotic cell as well as in the bacterial cell. That is, all the membrane bound cell organelles are absent in the prokaryotic cell. And that is the future in which, in the absence of mitochondria, we can able to observe there is a mesosomes. So this is what the function of a cell membrane. Then coming to cytoplasm. Coming to the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is granular. It's a granular structure. Crystallocolloidal complex it is. And it is filled in the entire cell, except in this presence of a nucleoid. So all other areas are covered by this cytoplasm. The cytoplasm will contain the mesosomes, I told you, the mesosome, the chromatophores, the ribosomes, inclusion bodies, and plasmids. These are all the structures that we can able to observe in this plasmids. Now let us discuss one by one the different structures. Okay, cytoplasm. So coming to this mesosomes. What these mesosomes? They are also called as a chondrioids. It's a convoluted membranous infolding. As I told you that cell membrane will make a infolding. And thereby it is a convoluted membranous infolding of a plasma membrane. Sometimes these mesosomes are connected with the nucleoid. And if it is connected with the nucleoid, it is called a septal mesosome. And sometimes these mesosomes will grow further and further and can reach up to the other side of the cell membrane during the division of the bacterial cell. During the division of the bacterial cell. So thereby this mesosome has the specific functions of cell wall formation. I hope you understood that. Here is the mesosome. And during the cell division, that is, these mesosomes will grow inward from this end, and another mesosome from this end will grow inward, and they come and fuse and develops into a specific cell wall, and the two cells are get separated. Daughter cells are formed. And that is what the main function of this mesosome, which helps in the wall formation. And thereby what happens? The chromosomes replication and distribution to the daughter cells. So that is during the cell division, you know that. And also we can able to observe that another most important function is secretory activity. What is the secretory activity? They are responsible for certain secretions. And after secretion, they have been released into this protoplasm. And also we can see these mesosomes as present, they are increasing the surface area of the plasma membrane. You can imagine it makes a numerous foldings, and because of the folding, surface area of the plasma membrane or the cell membrane naturally increases. And also mesosome functions like a mitochondria, because I told you mitochondria is absent in the prokaryotes, and the mitochondrial enzymes are present in this mesosome, and thereby mesosomes undergoes the function of respiration like a eukaryotic cell. So that is what the main functions of this mesosome, which is present in the cell membrane or a plasma membrane. Then the next structure present is a chromatophores. So these are present in the prokaryotic cell, which are internal membrane systems. Okay, they are internal membrane systems. And these are very extensive and complex. particularly in the cyanobacteria, which are undergoing the function of photosynthesis. So cyanobacterian members, you know that they are having a bacteriochlorophyll, cyanophycean granules, and thereby they are photosynthetic in function. And these chromatophores are also called as thylakoids. And particularly in the nitrifying bacteria, the chromatophores increases the metabolic area. Metabolic area is increased in the nitrifying bacteria by the presence of these chromatophores. So thereby you can see these are internal membrane systems, membrane foldings. Then the next one, ribosomes. What are these ribosomes? Ribosomes are of 70s size in the prokaryotes. And this 70s size of prokaryotic ribosome has two subunits. Larger subunit is of 50s and smaller subunit is of 30s. And thereby, sometimes these ribosomes during protein synthesis can make a polyribosomes. How do they form the polyribosomes? The single messenger RNA can go for the synthesis of a protein simultaneously, one after the other. And during that period, the number of ribosomes gets attached to the ribosome, attached to the messenger RNA, and they occurs in a chain. And individual ribosome can synthesize the individual protein molecule. And during that protein synthesis, we can able to observe that ribosomes arranged in a sequences on a messenger RNA, and they are called as a polyribosomes. Then this bacterial cell is also having other inclusion bodies. And these inclusion bodies are non-living structures which are present freely in the cytoplasm. And these inclusion bodies may be organic or inorganic in nature. And mainly there are different types like food reserve, gas vacuoles, chlorosomes, carboxysomes, magnetosomes. What are these food reserves? These are reserve material or storage granules. And generally these are not bounded by the membrane system. Okay. A given bacterial species generally stores one kind of reserve material. Only one kind of reserve material in this. And particularly we can able to observe the volutin granules, that is phosphate granules, polyphosphate granules, the sulfur granules. These are inorganic inclusions in these food reserves. And generally the organic food reserves in these are glycogen granules or protein granules or cyanophycean granules, it means starch granules. So like this we can able to observe these food reserves may store either inorganic or organic granules. Then coming with the gas vacuoles. These are generally present in the aquatic forms, generally free floating forms. And these are organic inclusions. And each gas vacuole is an aggregation of variable number of hollow or cylindrical vesicles. They are like a vesicles. Either they are hollow form or a cylindrical form. And thereby they help in floating. And also they help in proper positioning of these prokaryotic organisms in water to trap the light energy. So if they come onto the surface of water, they can get a higher intensity of light, and thereby they can undergo with a photosynthetic function. So that is why they are helping in floating. And then the next one is the chlorosomes. These are somewhat as cigar-shaped vesicles. They enclose the photosynthetic pigments. They enclose the photosynthetic pigments like bacteria chlorophyll, C, D, or E. And these are generally seen just below the plasma membrane. Okay, and they are most seen in green bacteria, photosynthetic bacteria. Next is carboxysomes. These are sites of carbon dioxide fixation. Again in autotrophic prokaryotes like cyanobacteria, purple bacteria, nitrifying bacteria. They are autotrophic. And to undergo with the photosynthesis, first the carbon dioxide has to be fixed, and that fixation of carbon dioxide takes place in these structures, that is carboxysomes. So that is what the structure we can see. This is the site for carbon dioxide fixation in a autotrophic bacteria. Then magnetosomes. These are also vesicles filled with crystals of magnetite. Magnetite. And magnetosomes helps in bacteria to orient themselves in the magnetic field. So in the magnetic field there is a magnetic effect, and thereby they have to orient themselves in that magnetic field, and thereby they themselves determine the direction of swimming with the help of these magnetosomes. Okay. So that is the different forms of inclusion bodies like food reserves, gas vacuoles, chlorosomes, carboxysomes, and magnetosomes. Then coming to the specialized structure present in the bacteria, they are plasmids. And you know that Liederberg for the first time introduced this term plasmid, which are ring-like, circular, self-replicating, extra-chromosomal, double-stranded DNA. Look at it. Extra-chromosomal, double-stranded DNA. Extra-chromosomal means the DNA which is present in the nucleus, which works as a hereditary material. But apart from that, extra chromosomal DNA which is present in these bacterial cells, they are called as plasmids. Okay. Plasmids are used in nowadays in a biotechnology field as a vector. So where the genes are carried from one organism to the another organism using these plasmids as a vector. And these are about the size of 1 to 300 kilobase pair size. Maybe 1 kilobase pair or 300 kilobase pair size. So size is variable. And that's why sometimes these are carrying even 5 to hundreds of genes. Plasmids are also carrying the genes of 5 to 100, and that's why sometimes they are also called as a mini chromosomes. Plasmids are also called as a mini chromosomes. And these plasmids are generally of different types. The plasmids are of different types. And these types are seen because based on their functions. The plasmids have their own functions, and based on their function, they are classified. The one is sex plasmid, the first one, sex plasmid. What is that sex plasmid? It carries a fertility factor. You have studied in the first semester. It carries a fertility factor that is called as a F factor, responsible for the formation of sex pili and helps in conjugation. a type of genetic recombination or considered as a sexual reproduction in a bacterial cell. And these sex plasmids, when present, they are considered to be F positive strains of bacteria. And the other strains are called as F negative. And during conjugation, the F negative forms are transformed into F positive forms. So that plasmid which is carrying the F factor, fertility factor, they are called as a sex plasmid. Then second is R plasmid. R represents resistance. R represents resistance. It carries a resistance factor, R, which provides a resistance against the antibiotics, heavy metals, UV radiations, like that. So there are a number of bacteria which can grow well under the UV radiation range, or some of them can grow in the place where there are heavy metals, and in that case they are able to survive because they have this plasmid with a specific gene of resistance property against these antibiotics, heavy metals, or UV radiations. Next is the col plasmid. So it is a plasmid carrying a factor called as cholicinogenic factor. Cholicinogenic, COLICINOGENIC, and which produces colicins, which helps in to kill the other bacteria. So some bacteria, to get protected from the other, they are responsible for this synthesis of a colicins, and these colicins are synthesized by cholicinogenic factor, and that's why it is abbreviated as col plasmid. Then we can see the Ti plasmid. Ti, tumor inducing plasmids, and this is carried by the bacteria which is called as Agrobacterium tumefaciens. The species tumefaciens is mainly because of they are carrying this tumor inducing gene. Agrobacterium is a soil bacteria. Agrobacterium tumefaciens. And particularly the crown gall disease, gall formation, crown gall disease, is because of this bacteria. Okay, because of this bacteria. So that is Ti plasmid, which is carrying the tumor inducing plasmid, but this plasmid is also one of the important vector in genetic engineering technology. So this plasmid is more useful. Then Ri plasmid. Ri plasmids. What is this Ri plasmid? It is root hair inducing plasmids. They are hairy roots responsible for the production of hairy roots. And the bacteria is again Agrobacterium rhizogene. Agrobacterium rhizogene. Then the other appendages, nucleoid. Nucleoid. What is that nucleoid? Already I have discussed. It's the genetic material of the prokaryotic cell. Genetic material of the prokaryotic cell, which is called as a nucleoid. And always it is represented by a single circular, naked, double-stranded DNA. Circular, naked, double-stranded DNA means this hereditary material is not composed of protein, but in chromosomes of eukaryotes, you know that they are composed of proteins and a DNA. They are called as nucleoproteinaceous chromosomes. But here they have been represented only, these hereditary material are represented by only DNA, and which is highly coiled, super coiled. In the earlier diagram, you have seen that material is coiled and super coiled, and mostly it is of about 1.2 mm length in Escherichia coli, E. coli, you know that. And in majority of the cases, the nucleoid is attached to plasma membrane directly or attached to the mesosomes. So that is what the futures that we can see. Then coming to the other appendages which are present. The surface appendages present in the bacterial cell. So far we have seen whatever the structure seen inner to the cell membrane. But we can able to observe the other futures, appendages present on the surface of this cell envelope. And they are called as appendages. In that, first one is a flagella. That's a plural, and flagellum is singular. And these are very long, fine, hairy, locomotory organs or appendages. And they are present on the surface of the bacterial cell. And mainly helps in swimming. But the number and the arrangement is varies. And the position also varies. Sometimes entire surface of the bacterial cell may be having the flagella, or they may be restricted to one end or a one pole of the bacterial cell, or it may be at both the ends. Like that varies in different genera. And some bacteria bear a sheath flagella surrounded by the extension of a cell membrane. And if you observe this ultrastructure of this flagella, that shows three parts. That is the basal body. Basal body. Okay, this structure, it is called as a basal body, here to here. Then hook, this portion is a hook, and the filament. So they have three parts: the basal body, a hook, and a filament. The basal body consists of actually the central rod. You can see this central rod with pairs of rings. You can see this, the pairs of rings. In gram-positive bacteria, the basal body possesses two pairs of rings. The outer pair is called as L ring and P ring. You can see this outer pair, L ring and P ring. And the inner pair is called as S ring and M ring. This is M ring. S ring and M ring. And they remains connected to the cell membrane, cytoplasmic membrane. They are connected to the cytoplasmic membrane. But where we can see this hook is slightly wider, curved in structure. Okay, and it is responsible for connecting this basal body and the filament. Filament and the basal body are connected by this hook. And this filament is a hollow cylindrical structure. And the filament is made up of about 3 to 8 spirals of flagellin protein. The protein present in the flagella, which is called as flagellin protein. And this bacterial flagella can rotate to 360 degrees rather than whip-like back and forth movement. It is a rotation, rotates. And thereby it helps in the movement of bacterial cell. That is, movement of the bacterial cell is helped by this flagella. And the next is structure is a pili. Pili. There is a plural, singular is pilus, and it is also another structure that is fimbriae. But these two terms like pili and fimbriae often used interchangeably. Pili are actually tubular outgrowths about 18 to 20 nm, and it is made up of a protein called as pillin. Protein called as a pillin. And they are reported to be present only in the donor cells of gram-positive bacteria, where they help in conjugation. The sex pili I already discussed. These pili can be produced by the bacteria which is having that fertility factor, F factor, and helps in conjugation. And that's why such bacteria is a F positive strain, and the pili which is present, they are sex pili. And their number may be 1 to 4 per cell. 1 to 4. Then what is fimbriae? Fimbriae are bristles. They are the bristle-like surface structures, and which helps in addition to the host cell, gets added to the host cell. And its length may be of about 6 to 7 mm, means it is shorter than the pili. Pili helps in conjugation by developing a conjugation tube, but fimbriae helps in get attached to the host cells, particularly in the pathogenic form, virulent forms. So this is the structures which is seen on the outer side of this prokaryotic cell, and thereby when we are studying the structure of the prokaryotic cell, both internally, the cell envelope internally having the structures like cytoplasm, the nucleoid, and the reserved appendages, and also the plasmids, all these structures present on the inner side. But onto the outer side of the cell envelope, the appendages are generally flagella, pili, and the fimbriae. So this is what the structure of a typical prokaryotic cell. So this is a broad idea of a typical prokaryotic cell, and you are already aware of this in the first semester where you have studied the ultrastructure of the bacterial cell, and that is the same as it is a typical prokaryotic cell structure. So